welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and we've got a lot to talk about on today's live show. And, I was hoping to have a more positive outlook on this week, on Week 10 up against the Jacksonville Jags. I was hoping that, we would have, a good keys to victory segment for you and a lot of fun talk. But gotta talk about the injuries. Probably saw already. I put out a short. I put out a tweet. CJ Stroud out this week. Oh my God. And you know what? Jack, I know this is a lot on the fly. Can we just get a one-word reaction to the Stroud injury? Let me know your one-word reaction to the Stroud injury down below in the comments section. We're also going to talk about how the trade deadline and the lack of trades by the Houston Texans impacts this team and possible free agent targets that the Texans can look at. And then at the end of every show, hashtag Texans, you know what it is. But go ahead. Give me your one-word reaction to the Stroud injury. Give me your one-word reaction to the Stroud injury. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just I'm the same as Larry and Charles. Damn. Like, you kind of knew it because with CJ Stroud, he was literally knocked out up against the Broncos. He was in the fencing position. And, yeah, it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. Like the video if you are still a true Texans fan and you're going to be rooting for this team with Davis Mills Mafia on Sunday, because that is the one silver lining, is that I know he didn't play great up against the Broncos. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL. But I do think Money Mills Mafia, the millionaires, the a milli, hopefully, he started enough games to where he can go out and just win us one game. Because I think Stroud will probably be back this next week, but we need the neck. We need the neck, Conan. All right. I got called Gino from Anthony Green, cooked from Romy, setback, percussion, draft, mock, darn, damn, heartbreaking. Yeah, I feel you. I feel you on that one. But there's nothing we can do at this point. We know it's going to be Davis Mills next. And Justin, you're right. Next man up. Next man up. We're going to get into our first segment here in the next 5 or so minutes, but make sure hashtag Texans or super chat down in the comment section. We'll be doing a mailbag at the end of today's show. And we have a new raffle item for the month of November. So if you do send in a super chat, we will be able to, which I actually forgot, my new helmet hasn't come in yet. So if we do hit 100, I'll do something else. I'll do something else. But $10, actually, let's change that to $5. Let's change it to $5. Every $5, you'll have a chance to win the JJ autograph picture. It is our month-long raffle in the month of November. And as I said on my trade live show yesterday, if you or a loved one served in the military, hit me up on Twitter at Jeremy Chuggs. Just send me a picture showing that you served our country, and I'll give you a free raffle ticket for the J.J. Watt autograph picture. So I see people already using the hashtag Texans. Make sure you put those in to get in the mailbag later on. And we will get into our first segment going over the injuries for the Texans and the Jags, because don't feel like it's just the Texans that are out a lot of key guys this week. The Jacksonville Jaguars are very injured as well. Alberto Serrato, screw it. Bring in Paul Crew. Hey, yeah, whatever gets us the dub on Sunday, I'm down. Whatever gets us the win on Sunday, I'm for it. We got 90 people in the chat right now. Can we get to, say, 30 likes? 10 more likes, and then we'll start our first segment. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up icon, like today's video. As I say, if you watch our live shows, you will have more opportunities to get free raffle tickets as well for that J.J. Watt autograph picture. But you got to make sure you're subscribed, like the video, and stick around for whenever we give those free raffle tickets away. Hourglass, I see your question. If you do have a question for me, make sure you use the hashtag Texans. I have my man on the ones and twos, producer Jack. So if you want your question up, you got to use that hashtag Texans so he'll be able to pull it up whenever we do our mailbag later on. 23 likes. We're 7 likes away. Hit the thumbs up icon, and we'll get started on today's show. No, you're good. All good. Hit that like button, and we'll get started on today's show. If you're just now joining us, we did get the unfortunate news. C.J. Stroud out this week up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jack Lotteray. Jack Lotteray, Anthony Green. He is on the ones and twos for this live show. And we're going to get, Conan, I know. I'm going to talk about Ka'imi as well. He was one of the bright spots from this past week, even though he missed he did miss a field goal. He made 5 of them. Alberto, Texans better be taking notes to see what gets done. Hey, I'm hoping that we can turn things around this week. I'm hoping that Davis Mills can step up because we absolutely need a win this week. 1, just to get closer to 500 if we can. And 2, it's against a division opponent, up against the Jags. They beat you in the first meeting, so you got to find a way to even that up. You got to find a way to say, hey, you got the first game. We got to get the second one if we want any chance at getting a wild card spot. I'm live right now. I was testing out the mic. Hey, this hot girl made it for me. Whoa! All right, we did hit 30 likes. Yeah, Juan Perez. No CJ, so very upsetting. Very upsetting. All right, we're going to get into our first segment, going over the injuries, going over, like I said, not just the Texans. The Jags have a ton of injuries as well on their side. So, you're ready for the first segment. Spam those H's, and let's get going with our injuries and previews for Week 10 up against the Jacksonville Jags. We've got a critical game in Week 10, and it doesn't help that the Texans have some injuries. The Jags have their fair share as well. So on today's show, we're going to be going over all of the injuries for this game and how it is going to impact this AFC South divisional game between the Jags and the Texans. And first off, we got to start off. This is what everybody wants to talk about. This is what everybody knows. C.J. Stroud officially ruled out this week up against Jacksonville. And, it was a slim chance that Stroud would be able to go this Sunday because, let's face the facts. This past weekend on Sunday, Stroud was knocked out up against the Denver Broncos. He was out cold for multiple seconds. He was in the fencing position. So when that happens with the new concussion protocol, with what the NFL has gone through in terms of concussions and, having players concuss, CTE, everything like that, it was going to be a long shot for Stroud to be out there. I think if this was 2005, 2010, if it was up to C.J. Stroud and DeMeco Ryans and the Texans medical staff, I think you would have seen 7 out there this week. Hell, you might have even seen C.J. playing the second half up against the Broncos. But this isn't the 2005 NFL. This isn't the 2010 NFL. This is the NFL where, they're going to take more precautions. Probably rightfully so to make sure the players are, better off in the long run. But it does suck. It is a big blow to this Texans team. And, they're going to have guys step up, namely Davis Mills. He started before for the Houston Texans. He started multiple seasons. Didn't play his best game up against the Broncos. But I think with a week of preparation, I think we could see Davis Mills step up and play a big part in a Texans win this Sunday because, CJ, he is the captain. He's the heart and soul of this offense and this team. But Davis Mills has experience. Davis Mills, I think against the Broncos, the first couple of drives looked good. Halftime, they made adjustments, and, the Broncos have one of the best defenses in the NFL as well. So I'd like to see Davis Mills out there ball out for old time's sake. Mills Mafia, Money Mills, can we get another great performance from you? Let me know down in the chat, and be honest with me. Do the Texans stand a chance this week? And after I go through the injury report for both teams, your answer actually might change on this one. Because I think a lot of people are going to say no to this, which is fine. Let me know your honest answer. Do the Texans stand a chance up against the Jags this week? But wait to see how many injuries the Jags have as well on their side. Let's stick with the Texans, though, and their injury report. Jalen Smith put on IR, second time this year, so that means per NFL rules, he will miss the remainder of this season. And it sucks because it's also his birthday today. So happy birthday to Jalen Smith, but also ruled out for the rest of the season. The Texans' third-round pick out of USC had a lot of promise. Had a really good training camp, preseason. The coaches were raving a lot about Jalen Smith. Injuries have kind of plagued his rookie season, so hopefully he'll be able to come back stronger next year for this Texans squad. Another player put on IR, short-term IR for Darrell Taylor. He will miss at least the next 4 games of this Texans season. The edge rusher who they signed in free agency this offseason. Not a huge blow on this one, but still, the Texans defense, that defensive line, they like to rotate these guys in. So this is one less guy that they can put in for Will Anderson Jr., Danielle Hunter, if they need a breather. Another guy who left Week 9 up against the Denver Broncos, Christian Harris. He will be questionable with a shin injury. Did not practice today on Wednesday. So his status for this weekend is up in the air. But another guy who's a rotational piece, a special teams player at this point, Christian Harris. So we'll have to see the update on him. Another guy who likely will not be able to play this Sunday, Texans right tackle Tytus Howard. At the time that I am filming, I don't think we have a definitive answer, yes or no, whether or not Tytus Howard will be out on Sunday. But another player who is in concussion protocol this week is, somebody who maybe has been one of the better players on this Texans offensive line at that right tackle spot, one of the veterans on this unit. So without him, that means Blake Fisher, the second-year man out of Notre Dame, the former second-round pick, will take over at the right tackle spot for this Texans team on Sunday if Tytus Howard isn't able to go. Also, another player that is probably not going to be able to go, D'Amico Ryans, did not give a very, I would say, glowing remark on Ka'imi's health going into this weekend. Questionable with a leg injury is Ka'imi Fairbairn, and it's sounding like he's not going to be able to go on Sunday. The Texans already made a move in corresponding to the injury with Ka'imi Fairbairn. They signed Matthew Wright to the practice squad, and they released Dalton Keene, the tight end fullback combo. So most likely you'll be seeing Matthew Wright suited up for the Texans this weekend, kicking field goals and kicking it off. Also, from ESPN's DJ Bieniemy, people who we didn't see at Texans practice, obviously C.J. Stroud, who was ruled out. Jalen Petrie wasn't at practice today. Nick Chubb, Ka'imi Fairbairn, who likely won't be out there. Will Anderson and Tytus Howard. So not a good list of players to not be practicing Wednesday before key game for this Texans team. Every single game for the rest of the season is a key game for this squad if they have any playoff aspirations. But I'm not going to say on the bright side because I'm never going to root for injury. I'm not going to say, good thing that the Jags have injuries. But it's not just the Texans that are dealing with these mid-season injury woes. It's also the team we're playing this Sunday in Jacksonville. I'll get to all the injuries that they have in just a moment. But first, got to tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with Prize Picks. The weather might be a changing, but the feeling of being right, that never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. It's super simple to play. Just pick more or less on two-player stats. If you get your picks right, you can cash in and win big time. And this is the lineup that I'm putting out for this Sunday. Money Mills, Can he get us a passing touchdown? I went the more on that. Also, one thing about Davis Mills, he is going to feed Nico Collins. So I'm going the more on Nico's longest reception because those two actually have a pretty decent connection. Silver lining in the CJ Stroud injury is I think Nico Collins, Davis Mills, they've played with each other before, so they have that good continuity between the two of them. We saw one of the first plays Davis Mills was in there. He sent a long ball to Nico Collins down the sideline. So give me the more on that longest reception. This one's a very interesting one, Producer Jack. Travis Etienne, 3.5 yards on his first rush. So it's all on that first rush by Etienne. I went less on the 3.5. I think that's a fun one. And then Trevor Lawrence, this defense, no fly zone. Let's get a pick this Sunday up against Lawrence. If all these hit, well, I'm going to be a happy, happy man and a wealthier man. And the one thing I love about Prize Picks, because last week I had CJ Stroud in my lineup, they offer injury reboots. So if one of your players leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks won't count it as a loss. That really saved my butt this past weekend. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Shout out to them. And if you want any of that information, it is down in the comment section and description of today's video. Go check them out today. Our sponsor, Prize Picks. All right, so this was last week. Don't want to, if you're watching this close to the Sunday game, this is not the inactive list up against the Houston Texans. This was up against the Raiders in Week 9, but just wanted to show you that to kind of a precursor that what we'll be watching this week in terms of injuries. And the number one player that I'm looking at is Devin Lloyd, arguably the best player on this Jags defense, has missed quite a bit of time. Week 6, he sustained an injury up against Seattle. He sustained a calf injury, did not travel with the team to London in Week 7, then did not play this past week up against the Raiders in Week 9. They had a bye week in Week 8, so it's been, 4 weeks since Devin Lloyd has hit the field. They're really slow playing his injury. Liam Cohen said, he had a lot of calf injuries last year whenever he was a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he's seen how if you come back too soon, that it could re-injure that calf. Kind of what happened with Christian Harris last year. But Devin Lloyd, he is going to be a big question mark. He was limited all last week, was a game-time decision. They decided to make him an inactive. Will he play this week up against the Houston Texans? This is going to be a huge name for this Texans team. They're already to their backup quarterback. He is the quarterback of the Jags defense. He is the best player for them. So we need to be seeing what Devin Lloyd's injury status is throughout the rest of this week and if he's going to play on Sunday. Another player who has been really good for this Jags defense, a sneaky free agent signing they had this offseason, Jourdan Lewis, former member of the Dallas Cowboys. He left Week 9 with a shoulder injury. Remember, he's the one that had one of those key picks up against CJ Stroud when the Jags beat the Texans earlier on in the season. He is a big question mark for this Sunday, whether or not he's going to be able to go. Also, speaking of the secondary, Jags are down a lot of players. They made a trade with the Browns earlier in a couple weeks ago. It was Tyson Campbell for Greg Newsome, so they added another player to their secondary, but their second overall pick, Travis Hunter, he was put on short-term IR. Same with former Texans player Eric Murray. He was put on short-term IR, so we will not see these guys playing for the Jacksonville Jags secondary this weekend. Going along with some more Jags injuries, Ezra Cleveland left the Week 9 game up against Las Vegas with a knee injury and ankle injury. His status is up in the air for Week 10 up against the Texans. Also, Dyami Brown, one of their electric wide receivers, he is questionable with a concussion. So, like we said, Stroud, Tytus Howard, they have to go through NFL concussion protocol. It's not up to the team or coaches or the player. It's up to independent doctors set by the NFL. So, Dyami Brown going through that same concussion protocol. So, we'll see if he's ready to go this Sunday. And one of their best players on offense, Brian Thomas Jr., the electric wide receiver, he is questionable with an ankle and shoulder injury. 30 receptions, 420 yards. Nice so far for Brian Thomas Jr. So, the Jags going to be without possibly a couple of their really good receivers. Probably why they made this move yesterday during the NFL trade deadline, going for Jacoby Myers. They sent a 4th and a 6th round pick to the Las Vegas Raiders for his services. And, a big a big get by Jacksonville, in my opinion, because they needed wide receiver help. Parker Washington has played well for them, but if Brian Thomas Jr., if Dyami Brown are out, look for the brand new Jag, Jacoby Myers, to be a big part of their offense in Week 10. And the Texans, they probably need to focus in on Jacoby Myers. I know he's brand new. I don't know how up to speed he's going to be with the playbook by Sunday, but I would guess that he's going to be suited and ready to go for this Jags team with all the injuries they have at the wide receiver spot. And this is the point in the video I'd usually give you, a list of, 4 to 5 keys to victory and say, oh, yeah, we need to, get after Trevor Lawrence. We need to stop Travis Etienne, this, that, and the other. Let's be honest, guys. At this point in the season, with how this team has played, with how this season has gone, it's up to the defense. We saw it this past weekend. We saw it up against the Broncos. It's up to the defense. They got to play 4 quarters of swarm defense. They need to suffocate this Jags offense all day long, and the Texans just need to find a way to get a touchdown. Can they get maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns, put up 14 points, 17 points, and I think the Texans have a chance. Because the Jags almost lost to the Raiders in Week 9. The Raiders took them to overtime. And if this Texans team wants to beat the Jags, it's a home game. They need to take control of this game with the time of possession. They need to be able to run the ball. They need to stop Trevor Lawrence in this Jags passing attack and get after him. Maybe get a couple turnovers on defense. But if we're going to be honest, it's a long shot. This Texans team with a backup quarterback in Davis Mills needs to come out, and they need to play some inspired football. And the coaching staff needs to have these guys ready to go by Sunday. I think that might be in part why DeMeco Ryans decided to rule C.J. Stroud out already this early in the week to say, hey, let's get it. Let's say, C.J. Stroud's out. Let's all put our wagons behind Davis Mills and get ready to go into battle. That's all I have for you on today's show, folks. If you made it to the end of this segment, well, you're an absolute real one. Spam those H's down in the comments section. Appreciate you all. And reminder, I'll be live this Sunday for Texans and Jags 30 minutes before kickoff. So don't miss out. Be there. And let's root on our Texans for a surprising victory up against the Jags. All right, that's the end of our first segment on today's show. What's your confidence level in Davis Mills as the backup quarterback? Scale it 1 to 10. For me, I'm at about a 6, 7. That's where I'm at. I'll say this. I'm glad that we have a competent backup. There's a reason why he's not a starter. I'll say that. There's a reason why Davis Mills is not a starter. I think he's a good player. I think in spurts, he can help you win some games. We'll see. It is worth noting that, remember when in Stroud's rookie season, he had the concussion that had him out a couple weeks? They actually decided not to play Davis Mills. They went ahead and played Case Keenum. So it is interesting to see this Texans team, have more faith in Davis Mills as the years go by, because, like I said, it was up against the Titans and up against the Browns in C.J. Stroud's rookie year. Davis Mills was on the team, and they went ahead and went with Case Keenum. So it is what it is. All right, we do have a super chat from BW Blue Sky. We'll get to that here in just a moment. Reminder, if you want a chance to win the J.J. Watt autographed picture during the month of November, all month long, get your super chats in, and we'll be able to get you your raffle tickets. BW Blue Sky, I gotcha. Is Case Keenum available right now? I think Case is the 3rd string for the Bears. I don't know. At least we did not lose any draft picks Tuesday. Our defense will determine this Sunday's outcome. I mean, I agree. I did want the Texans to make a move, possibly on the offensive line, maybe try to get Breece Hall. D'Amico said that they tried. D'Amico said they tried to make a trade, and nothing panned out. So that makes me think that they tried a couple trades. Now, what were those trades, and what were they willing to offer? Yes, Case Keenum is a member of the Bears, by the way. We'll see, but I am a little upset that they weren't able to get Breece Hall because he was begging to leave New York all day yesterday. And I think the addition of him, especially if we're not going to see Joe Mixon back for the rest of this year, that would have given some juice to this offense. But it is what it is. Reminder, any Super Chat gets you up on screen during today's program. $5 Super Chat. You'll get a J.J. Watt autograph picture raffle ticket. We'll be doing that at the end of this month. Conan, my bad. I was trying to be hey, you're all good. You're all good. All right, our next segment that we're going to get into, we are going to be talking about the trade deadline yesterday and basically where the Texans go from here. I was surprised that they weren't able to make any trades happen, regardless of, like, if they're not even getting anybody. I have a couple guys on their team that I thought they could have gotten traded away, but and I think Asai Gutierrez kind of shares the same sentiment that I thought the Texans might have tried to move on from Dameon Pierce, Christian Harris. Yeah, I agree. I was live 3 hours leading up to the deadline, and nada. But all right, Asai, you did send in a $2 super chat, but if you want to send in another $2 super chat, I'll go ahead and give you a raffle ticket for the J.J. Watt autograph picture. Next up, let's talk about that trade deadline. Let's talk about what happened yesterday and talk about, do the Texans really stand any chance moving forward? And if they do need help, if they win this weekend, are there any free agents that they could possibly pick up? All right. You ready to go, Jack? All right. Jack's ready. I'm ready. I hope y'all are ready. Let's get into this next segment here on Texans Today Live. Coming up on today's show, how did the NFL trade deadline this past week affect your Houston Texans and their playoff chances? We'll go through all the trades that happened and that will affect your Houston Texans moving forward as they try to at least get a wild card spot. Plus, at the end of today's show, let's look at the top free agents, because if the Texans want to add any players by the end of this season to help them on a playoff push, it's going to have to come in free agency. So let's look at the top guys available at the positions of need. First, I want to ask a fun question, because I know the past week with everything going on, it hasn't been the most fun week being a Texans fan. But let's remember back to maybe brighter days, to better days as being a Texans fan. I want to know, how long have you been a Texans fan? Has it been since the team, its conception in 2002? Has it been since the 2010s? Let me know. How long have you been a Texans fan? And if you want bonus points, let me know. Who was the starting quarterback whenever you first were watching the team? Only if you want bonus points. Only if you want bonus points. Let me know when you started watching this team and who the quarterback was when you really started becoming a fan of this Texans squad. All right, let's go through the trades that happened. Remember, trade deadline was November 4th. It was Tuesday, 4 o'clock Eastern time, and that was the last time NFL teams were able to make trades during the 2025-2026 NFL season. First up, let's talk about the one that I actually broke down in a singular video on Tuesday morning. It is the Jakobi Meyers trade, and because this one impacts your Texans most, closely to this date, because the Texans, they play the Jags on Sunday, and Jakobi Meyers will more than likely be suiting up to be Trevor Lawrence's go-to guy. And this move, I actually really like this move for the Jags, because what's the one problem that the Jacksonville's faced all year? All year. It's been drops at the wide receiver spot. I mean, look at the running back spot too. Look at that Texans game that the Jags beat the Texans. I want to say they had like 4 or 5 drops in that game alone. Insert Jacoby Myers, who last year for Las Vegas, 0 drops all season long, cracked 1,000 yards for the first time in his NFL career. So they get a shorthanded wide receiver whenever their depth is bad. Brian Thomas Jr., Dyami Brown, questionable. Travis Hunter still on IR for that squad. So insert Jacoby Myers. That affects your Texans most closely to right now being week 10 whenever they face off in Houston. Let's go to maybe the biggest trade that happened all day during the NFL trade deadline. It was the big splash, Sauce Gardner for 2 first-round picks and A.D. Mitchell. And obviously the Colts felt some type of way. They felt like they needed to make a push because they are currently the number 1 seed in the AFC, sitting at 7-2. Technically tied there with the Patriots and Broncos. I'm guessing the Colts would have a tiebreaker in some sort of fashion over those two teams at this moment. But after a loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Colts said, no, we're not going to be scared. We're putting all our chips on the table. Jim Irsay's daughter, credit her. She's down on the sideline. She's doing everything she needs to do to win this division and get possibly a number 1 seed and a first-round bye in the AFC playoffs. And the impact that this has on your Houston Texans is we still have to play the Colts twice this year, and this definitely improves their secondary. Their defense, not too shabby, and then they add a lockdown corner in Sauce Gardner. He's, maybe hasn't had his best year, and since his rookie season, I think he's been a little bit, overinflated in my opinion, but at the end of the day, he's still a good cornerback. Look at the numbers from 2022, 20 PBUs, 2 interceptions. I believe the stat was at the beginning of the year, Sauce Gardner has the most PBUs out of any corner since he was drafted. So maybe they did overpay for Sauce Gardner. Maybe, 2 firsts and A.D. Mitchell is a crazy asking price for a lockdown corner like Sauce. And he's also on a pretty big contract, getting paid more than Derek Stingley. But I want to hear from you folks at home. The Colts trading for Sauce was a blank move. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. The Colts trading for Sauce was a blank move. Did you like it? Was it a good move, bad move? What do you think about that? Because they are, like I said, going all in. And for me, I had to use this. I had to use this meme because it's bold. That's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them, because they are basically banking on Daniel Jones continuously having these, great games for the Colts offense. Jonathan Taylor absolutely running over teams, and, their schedule has been pretty favorable so far. So I'm really interested to see if they keep that up throughout the next couple weeks, because, the Colts, they lost to the Steelers. Daniel Jones had 3 interceptions. They play the Falcons in Germany this week. And past that, it's not an easy schedule. They play the Texans moving forward. They also play the Chiefs moving forward. So their schedule definitely gets a little bit tougher down the road. Banking everything on this season and Daniel Jones, if I told you that before the season, you'd probably say the Colts are absolutely insane. But, bold move. And fortune usually favors the bold. So let's see if it does it with the Indianapolis Colts, or if they will be regretting that decision down the road with those first-round picks. Now, coming up, more trade impact. Plus, we're gonna take a look at some free agents the Texans could add at some positions of need. And I'm gonna warn you, they're not pretty. They're not the most beautiful girls at the ball. We'll say that. But we'll look at the top free agents that the Texans could add. Before I talk about what the Texans can add, let me talk about what you could add to your daily life, and it is our friends over at Prize Picks. You want some more excitement? Well, I got you covered, because this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with Prize Picks. And the weather, that might be a changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. Want to pick more on Josh Allen's pass yards and rush yards and touchdowns? Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. And Prize Picks is the best way to get action on football in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. And for this weekend, this is the lineup that I am rolling with. Davis Mills, I have faith. Come on, Mills Mafia. Come on, Mills Mafia. More than 0.5 passing touchdowns. Nico Collins, they have a connection. Remember, Mills, he has thrown to Nico Collins. He was the starter whenever Nico Collins was one of the top wide receivers for this team still. So I think that connection is going to carry over to this Sunday. Give me the more on his longest reception. I'm going less on Travis Etienne's first carry, 3.5 yards. Come on, Texans defense. And then Trevor Lawrence, 0.5 interceptions. I'm going the more on that. You can use my picks or go totally against them. Just do it over on Prize Picks today. Download the Prize Picks app. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, let's talk about some more trades that impact this Texans team, because it's not just, the teams in our division that made trades. Other teams in the AFC also improved. The Chargers, this one wasn't on trade deadline day, but they went ahead and made a move for an edge rusher in Odafe Owe from the Baltimore Ravens, improving their defense just a little bit. And then right before the trade deadline ended, this one came through the fax machine, they ended up trading for Saints offensive lineman Trevor Penning. Both of their star tackles, Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, will miss the rest of this season. So the Chargers, currently in the wild card race, have one of those spots. They could be falling because, like I said, both of their starting tackles out for this year. And as Texans fans, we have to pay attention to teams in the wild card race and what they're doing, because I'm not done with this Texans season. I still think there is a reality, there's a way, there's a will that the Texans could end up being in a wild card spot. Now, is that what we all wanted and hoped for, and was that the aspirations whenever we started this season? Of course not. We all thought AFC South champs once again, three-peat. But let's be realistic and say, hey, we are still in it for this wild card race. And remember, the Texans, C.J. Stroud's rookie year at the beginning of the year, did not look like they were going to make the playoffs. Went on a magical run. The only team to make the playoffs after starting 0-3 since the year 2000, your Houston Texans in 2018. So it's not over till the fat lady's singing and I don't hear any noise. So we got to pay attention to what other teams are doing. And that's why it kind of upset me that the Texans weren't able to make a move before the deadline. D'Amico came out and said, they tried making multiple moves, but nothing panned out. The Ravens also, getting better. And the fact is, that a lot of people are saying, well, the Texans shouldn't improve. There's no way they could, look to improve, because where we're at, it doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make any sense to try to make your team better. Well, the Ravens are sitting exactly where the Texans are. Both those teams are 3-5. The Texans actually own the head-to-head over the Ravens, and they are continuously trying to improve. So I don't want to hear that the Texans shouldn't look to get better this year. The Texans should mail it in. As long as there's a will, as long as there's a way, you got to try to make that playoffs, because all that matters is getting into the dance. All it matters is that you're playing football in January. Once that is, hey, you have 60 minutes each and every week to continue and survive and advance. And that's all I'm asking for the Houston Texans, if we can just make it to the dance. And I see people in the comments saying it's over. Hey, that's your prerogative. You can say it's over, but I'm not quitting till the fat lady sings. So let's look at some top free agents that the Texans could add if they need. Later on in the season, obviously, we weren't able to add anybody at the trade deadline. At the running back spot, here are the top guys that we're looking at in free agency. Gus Edwards, who I'm actually shocked that he still has yet to make a roster. Played well, I think, for the Chargers last year, for the Ravens as well. I think Gus Edwards is a decent back. Zach Moss, formerly of the Cincinnati Bengals. Jamal Williams. You all know Jamal Williams. With those amazing speeches that he's had before, a kind of a power back there. Mike Boone and then Cordero Patterson all would be able to be added to this Texans squad. Let's look at some tight end free agents. And we talked about these guys a lot. With all the injuries happening, Cade Stover should be able to come back in the next couple of weeks, according to, Nick Caserio, D'Amico Ryans, if you believe what they have to say about it. They expect Cade Stover to be back at some point. But if the Texans need to add some more help, Jordan Akins, former Houston Texan. Hayden Hurst is also available out there. Gerald Everett is a very interesting name that I continuously bring up because did not play while Nick Caley was a coach for the LA Rams, but was there right before Caley got with Sean McVay. So Gerald Everett still was in that Sean McVay system that Nick Caley was under while he was a member of the LA Rams. So an interesting connection there. Peyton Hendershot and then CJ Uzomah are two more names that we could look at. And then offensive line, and the third name, I know y'all are going to laugh in the comment section. But realistically, and this is why I'm a little upset that the Texans weren't able to trade for like a Trevor Penning or look at another guy to help maybe an Evan Neal from the New York Giants. They were basically trying to give him away for free. I'm not shitting you. Shaq Mason is one of the best offensive line free agents out there. Andre Dillard, Isaiah Wynn are two more names that this team could look at. And then Nate Davis and Mark Glowinski, two guys who, not ideal players to start on your, offensive line at this point in the season. But if I know you're going to get a good laugh out of that because Shaq Mason is one of the top free agents at the offensive line spot. That's why I wanted the Texans to make a trade. But nonetheless, that is the impact that the NFL trade deadline had on your Houston Texans. And at the end of the day, I showed you the playoff graphic earlier. The fat lady hasn't sung. So I'm still going to believe in this Texans team. You can laugh at me. You can call me crazy. You can call me a goofy goober all you want. But I'm still going to root for this Texans team. If you want to hit me up on X, you can do so at Jeremy Chuggs. My DMs are always open. And if you made it to the end of today's video, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'll always say, give me 1 week. Hit that sub button. It's 100% free. Give me 1 week to prove to you that this is the best Texans channel on YouTube. If you don't like it, hey, no skin off your back. You can unsub. But I promise you, you will enjoy this channel, and you will be part of one of the best Texans communities on YouTube. Shh. All right. A lot of positivity in the chat today. So this question should go over smoothly. Predict the Texans' record at the end of the season, guys. Because, a lot of positivity. Let's see. 7-10. A couple 7-10s rolling in from C-Dub and Harrison Diggs. Sure did. We got promised the moon, and all we got was cheese. Tonight, we steal the moon. 8-9 from Crimson Ninja. X1 the Goat says 5-12. Really? I find it hard to believe that the Texans are going to go 5-12 for the rest of the year. But I didn't think that the Texans would be 3-5 at the halfway point in the season either. A lot of 8-9s, 10-7, 11-6, 10-7. There's some more positivity right there. I'd probably say at this point, if I had to guess, I'm probably with VW Blue Sky 9-8. I'd like for the Texans to be 10-7. I think, at this point in the year, I think, ceiling would be 11-6. You lose one more game for the rest of the season, which is going to be tough. I'm not gonna lie to you. 11-6 is probably the top ceiling for this Texans squad this year. The bottom, I would say, you're 3-5 right now. I would say 7-10 is probably the floor for this squad. So anywhere between 7-10 and 11-6 is where I'm sitting, but I'm going in the middle and saying 9-8. Hopefully they get one more win than I expect, but we'll see. Isai, there we go. We got some questions rolling in, some super chats. I'm going to give you a raffle ticket, Isai, because you definitely hit the $5 mark on today's show. I also see a super chat rolling in from James Johnson. James, if you want a raffle ticket for the J.J. Watt autograph picture, make sure to send in another $2 super chat. We'll be able to get you one of those. And last chance, we're going to do our mailbag here in just a moment. Use that hashtag Texans to get on today's show. Shout out to James Johnson. Use that hashtag Texans to get on today's show. And maybe it'll get you covered. Michael, good questions for the mailbag. I think we'll be good for the mailbag with questions. Asai says, Brightside, Indy Jones is more successful than T-Law. Yeah. All right, guys, keep on getting those hashtag Texans questions in, or this might be a 10-minute mailbag, which not ideal, but that's okay. That's okay. Could be, another one from Asai. I didn't even realize this was a different one. Could be worse. Falcons plus Commanders look so lost. I mean, the bright side is the defense looks awesome. I mean, the defense is amazing. Michael R getting a couple raffle tickets. Same with VW Blue Sky. Still getting 2 raffle tickets, Michael. Guys, if you have a question or if you want to say something that gets up on screen, make sure you use the hashtag Texans, just like 1TZ Cosmo did down there. Michael, without Stroud, we will not do well. We have struggled all year with offense, and Mills will not do better, but worse. He has poor field awareness. I can answer this one in the mailbag. Appreciate the super chat, Michael. Oh, James. There we go. James Johnson getting you a raffle ticket. Thanks for the good show. Thanks for tuning in, James. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate everybody for spending some time here on Texans Today. I always say, most valuable thing you have in this world is your time, and the fact that you're spending some of that time here with me today, I appreciate y'all. Good, hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed and get those questions in. I think we're getting some more in, so we should be decent to go. Reminder, if you want a J.J. Watt autograph raffle ticket, every $5 super chat gets you another one of those bad boys. All right, let's get into today's mailbag. Final segment here on our Texans Today live show. Welcome into Texans Today, everybody. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's show, a Texans Today mailbag, and all these questions are from November 5th, 2025. And reminder, they're from our loyal subscribers during our live show. We're live every Wednesday at 3:30 Central Time. And if you are watching this live, reminder, use that hashtag Texans or Super Chat to be featured on the show. And if you're watching on a later date, if you want to get a question on our live show and you're not able to make it, you can super thanks down below, and I'll be able to put that question on our next live show. Let's get into our first question on today's show. Michael R. Without C.J. Stroud, we will not do well. We have struggled all year with offense, and Mills will not do better, but worse. He has poor field awareness. I mean, I'm not gonna be a snake oil salesman and try to convince you that this Texans offense has been good this year, or that this Texans offense will be playing better with Davis Mills than it would with C.J. Stroud. But I will say this. Those first couple drives that Davis Mills had up against the Broncos, I didn't think he looked half bad. And on the bright side of that as well, you do have a backup that has experience. He has started for this Texans team for multiple seasons and, wasn't the best starter, but I think he's a serviceable backup, and this Texans defense can continue the level of play they've had all year long. The Jags have a lot of injuries on their side as well. So, home field, Texans in a must-win game. I at least believe that D'Amico Ryans will get our boys riled up and ready to play. This team does not have quit. This team still plays with a ton of heart. We saw that last weekend up against the Denver Broncos. Say what you will about this offense, about this team. They never gave up. They never gave up a single moment, even without their starting quarterback, with multiple injuries along, the offense. They didn't give up one whatsoever. So I'm not going to give up on this team if they're going to show me that effort week in and week out. I still think, not a good chance, but there's a chance that this Texans team can pull off an upset in week 10. Next question from VW Blue Sky. Play spoiler till we get back in it. I mean, that's all you can do, right? We talked about, earlier in the live show, there's a lot of teams that made trades during the NFL trade deadline. And there's teams that are ahead of you in the wild card race as it stands right now. The LA Chargers are one team that, they're trying to piece and scrap together their team. They're dealing with a lot of injuries. Both their starting tackles, their left tackle and right tackle, Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, out for the rest of this year. So that's a team that you play later on down the road. Also, you play the Kansas City Chiefs. You play the Indianapolis Colts twice. So your destiny's still in your own hands, and you're playing teams that those wins directly impact you and them in terms of the AFC playoff standings. So, yeah, go ahead and play spoiler as long as you can. I wouldn't mind maybe giving the Colts a couple losses as well, knock them out of that 1 seed. Thank you for your Super Chat, VW Blue Sky, and that question. Next up from Jimmy0988, Jimmy Eats World, hashtag Texans. Hashtag Texans. I've heard some crazy rumors that Joe Mixon won't ever play again. I will say that, from multiple people, I have heard somewhat of the same sentiment, that the injury is a lot bigger than what people have been led on to think it is, and that it could be career-threatening for Joe Mixon. Unfortunately for us, we don't have any confirmation from either him, his team, the Texans, front office. It's kind of mum's the word at NRG. Texans, worst kept secret this year is Joe Mixon possibly being able to go this season. And, I haven't gotten a confirmation, yes or no, but it doesn't look good, right? On the other hand, as well, Joe Mixon was there during the Week 8 victory up against the 49ers. He was at the stadium, live tweeting during the game. He was in the locker room. He was seen walking around NRG with no boot, no crutches. I mean, right? You would hope that if you see your running back walking on under his own power, no crutches, no boot, no anything, that he might be able to go in the next couple weeks, but who knows? The Texans, Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans might come out next week and be like, oh, yep, Joe Mixon's ready to go. I want to hear from you folks at home, though. What do you think? Will Joe Mixon play again this season? Do you think yes? Do you think no? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section, because honestly, your guess is probably better than anybody else's, because they don't want to tell anybody about Joe Mixon. They don't want to let you know even how he's injured, what he injured, what happened, because it didn't happen at the team facility. That's why he was on the NFI list, the non-football injury list, because he was either working out or doing something outside the facility whenever he sustained that injury. And they don't want to let you know how it happened, what happened, and what went down. So a big mystery. Maybe we can get the Scooby-Doo and the team on it, because nobody knows anything around the Joe Mixon injury and the severity of it at this point in time. Zach Rose, hashtag Texans. I'm glad the AFC South is putting pressure on us, because I think the Texans got too comfortable with winning our division against trash opponents. Hopefully we will step up and get serious next year. I actually agree with you, Zach. I agree with you on this, that I think the Texans, the fan base, the team possibly, and the front office, we're getting a little too comfortable, because, how many publications, how many people at the beginning of this season were like, oh, Texans, I predict them to win the AFC South. I would say the overwhelming majority said the Texans were going to three-peat as the Texans, or as the AFC South champions. I mean, hell, I said it here on the channel. I thought the Texans were going to three-peat as AFC South champions. And I think the fact that the Colts are showing a little bit of life, the Jags are showing a little bit of life, helps the Texans out in that sense of urgency this offseason. We're not going to be able to cakewalk through our schedule, especially the Texans. They had a rough schedule beginning of this year and throughout this season. Maybe next year with a more favorable schedule and this team taking the rest of the division a little bit more seriously, we'll be able to improve and come out next year and put a better team around C.J. Stroud and for D'Amico Ryans to coach up. I have some more questions from my loyal subscribers here in just a moment, but couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for our amazing sponsors over at Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with our sponsor. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. It's super simple. Just pick more or less on two-player stats. If you get picks right, you cash in and win big time on Prize Picks. How you play, it's up to you. If you want flexibility, choose the Flex Play, where you can get paid even more if one of your picks misses. And if you want the biggest payouts, go for the Power Play. No matter your play, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test. And here's my takes for this week on Sunday. Davis Mills, I'm saying he's going to get one passing touchdown. Come on, Money Mills. Mills Mafia, who's with me? Nico Collins, longest reception. I'm going the more on that. Travis Etienne, his first rush, 3.5 yards. I'm going the less. And then Trevor Lawrence, interceptions, I'm going the more. You can use my picks or go against them. Just do it with our friends over at Prize Picks. And Prize Picks, they also offer an injury reboot. And that really helped me this past weekend with the C.J. Stroud injury. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks, they won't count it as a loss. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, Harrison Diggs. Do you think the Texans have a shot to make the AFC Championship game in the next 2 seasons? I do. I do, because at the end of the day, you have a top defense in the NFL. You have a quarterback in C.J. Stroud, who I think with a decent offensive line has shown you like more life throughout the season. I think before that injury, he even in that Broncos game, they were moving the ball down the field. They got to the 1-yard line. They were right there. Like C.J. Stroud, I thought was looking much better. You can get some better blocking up front. If I'm the Texans, I'm taking at least 3 offensive linemen in this next year's draft. Maybe your first 3 picks. And I think if they address their biggest needs and stop, just, oh yeah, we'll do little ads here and there. We'll do this and that. No, head on, attack your needs. Look at what the Chicago Bears did this offseason for Caleb Williams. They traded for Tooney from the Kansas City Chiefs. They traded for another guard from the LA Rams. They went out and signed a tackle. Like, they went and did all these, or they went out and signed the center from the Atlanta Falcons. They made sure to shore up that offensive line in front of Caleb Williams. And the Texans, they did not do as much, and Nick Caserio was not nearly as aggressive as this team needed him to be. 1TZ Cosmo, hashtag Texans. Perhaps we should think about the rookie quarterback we drafted. I'm guessing you're talking about Graham Mertz for this weekend, and respectfully, no way am I putting Graham Mertz in a game that the Texans really need to win. His first start, no. You put in Davis Mills, you put the more experienced player in, and, if it's that bad at halftime, which I don't foresee it being that bad, him being a starter for as many games as he started in the NFL, you cannot rely on a rookie quarterback who had a roller coaster preseason. Remember, he had a decent preseason game, but also he had one of the worst preseason games that I've seen out of a Texans quarterback. So I'm not going with Graham Mertz. No way. Tristan Smith, hashtag Texans. With how he's played this season, I can't see the Texans extending C.J. Stroud. I get a lot of people are, upset that C.J. hasn't been able to get back to that level that he was his rookie season. But maybe silver lining, you'll be able to extend C.J. Stroud, and he'll take a reasonable contract for you for the next 4 to 5 years. Because as we look at the highest paid quarterbacks on a per-year basis, Dak Prescott leads the NFL, and then you have a 4-way tie for the second highest paid quarterback. If I'm the Texans, I say, hey, you know what, CJ? We'll put you right above Josh Allen. We'll give you $56 million a year on an extension. And remember, the NFL is going to have a new, TV licensing deal in a couple of years. So the cap is going to shoot way up. So $56 million now is going to be kind of chump change for the quarterback contracts that are going to come down the road. For guys like a Caleb Williams, for guys like a Jaden Daniels, they're going to get more than $60 million a year. Book it. But if they're able to get a deal done this offseason and get him in that $55, $56 million a year range, I think that'll be a good deal. You're able to, accept that 5th-year option, tack on the extension, and, push the money down the road. The contract will look really, really good in a couple of years, and the Texans will be able to make out a lot smarter because, remember, this is kind of the dilemma that the Cowboys had with Dak Prescott. They were like, oh, we're going to wait and see if he's definitively the guy. We're going to keep on pushing that can down the road until we have to extend him, or CJ, or in their case, Dak Prescott would hit free agency. They ended up having to franchise tag him twice and give him that record-setting deal that is still standing right now at $60 million per season. So if the Texans wait and CJ balls out next season, he's making $65 million a year plus. I'd rather pay him $10 to $9 million a year less and secure him moving forward this offseason. That's just me, though. What is your confidence level in C.J. Stroud as the franchise quarterback? Scale it 1 to 10. I'm at a 9. I still believe in Stroud. Call me crazy, but I think Stroud is a good quarterback. I think he is a quarterback that is still young. He's under the age of 25, and he showed you so much potential even with horrible offensive line play. So if you can just give him something moving forward, give him a good O-line, hey, I think Stroud will surprise a lot of people moving forward. Crimson Ninja, should the Knicks be fired? The New York Knicks? No. You're talking about Nick Caserio and Nick Caley, the GM and the offensive coordinator. It's tough because I have, praised Nick Caserio in the past for moves that he's made, but the two things that really hang me up with Nick Caserio at the moment. One, his, I'm the smartest guy in the room mentality, which it's cool whenever it's working, whenever your team's playing well, whenever you're making good decisions like, hiring DeMeco Ryans, drafting C.J. Stroud, moving up to draft Will Anderson Jr. But when you are negligent to maybe the most obvious need of the entire offseason, not only for the Texans, but maybe in the NFL. If you asked every NFL fan this offseason, what is one position group for one team that needs to be fixed? I think a good chunk of people would say the Texans O-line. Everybody knew it. I knew it. You knew it. Other teams knew it. Everybody knew it, apparently except for Nick Caserio, that the Texans' offensive line needed to be fixed this offseason. And he thought trading away our best player and getting one player in the draft to replace only him would fix the problem. Everybody knew this. Everybody knew the offensive line needed major help. And Nick Caserio laughed in our faces and said, oh, guys, I've got it covered. Caley, first-time play caller, give him a little bit more grace moving forward. He has been frustrating, but we do have to remember, first-time play caller with a bad offensive line. It's tough to be creative and call plays when you have that combo. So if any of the Knicks get fired this offseason, I honestly do think it should be the GM and Nick Caserio. Next up, Christian Tate. Hashtag Texans, when will you start doing mock drafts? I'm not doing mock drafts. I can't do it. And I was actually, it's funny enough, I was talking to my guy, producer Jack, before I went on this live show. And I said, you know what? Mock drafts, if you're, at this point in the season, especially if you're in the hunt, if you still have a chance to make the playoffs, one, I don't think it makes sense there. But also, at this point in the year, if you're outside the top 10 in a mock draft, it's just such a crapshoot. You don't even know the guys that will be there, the position that you'll be in. Mock drafts, it just doesn't make any sense for me to do it at this point in the year. So maybe once the Texans are eliminated, I'll say that. If once the Texans are mathematically eliminated, I pinky promise I will do a mock draft that week. Deal? But as long as there's a chance, as long as it's the Dumb and Dumber meme, so you're telling me there's a chance, I'm not doing mock draft. I'm just not going to do it. Michael R., if we lose Sunday, is the season over? For mock drafts to this question. No, but it's like you're digging a hole right now. And right now we're about this deep in the hole. If you lose, just keep on shoveling. Keep on shoveling. We're already chest deep in this hole, and every loss gives another dig. So I'm not ready for the season to be over. I'm not going to say the season's over just yet because, like I said, we've seen crazier things happen. Nobody thought that in C.J. Stroud and DeMeco Ryans' rookie years with the Texans that they would make the playoffs that season. Nobody thought after the Texans were 0-3 that they would make the playoffs that year. And I guarantee all the people that are saying that in my comment section right now that the season's over were the same people saying the Texans won't make the playoffs. C.J. Stroud's rookie year, the Texans won't make the playoffs after going 0-3. I guarantee it's the same people, which is fine. More often than not, you're right. But I'm going to see how it plays out, and I'm going to keep on rooting on this team. That's all I got for you on this mailbag edition of Texans Today. Made it to the end of today's show. Make sure you hit that sub button for daily videos around your Houston Texans. That's it, everybody. There we go. 2 supers to go through. Let's go. James Johnson, thanks for the good show. Thank you for tuning in, Mr. James Johnson. And another super chat coming in from BW Blue Sky. Michael Street Texans should have done everything they could to have drafted Gabe Zabel. And it's actually funny because right after the first round of this past year's NFL draft, everything that I was hearing from my sources close to the team were that the Texans were trying really hard to trade up in that draft for multiple players. Apparently, they had 4 linemen and 1 receiver that they really were willing to move up or do something to get in this year's NFL draft, and it just sucks because nobody was willing to move up with them or trade up with them for them to get one of these players. It was Kelvin Banks, who went in the top 10 to the New Orleans Saints, Tyler Booker, the guard who ended up going to the Dallas Cowboys, Gray Zabel, the guard center who went to the Seattle Seahawks, Donovan Jackson, who actually went 1 pick before the Houston Texans to the Minnesota Vikings, and the one receiver I was told that they were willing to move up for in the first round was Emeka Egbuka, who went 5 slots before them to the, I believe it was 5 or 6 slots before them to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So from what I heard, they were trying to move up during the draft. Now, how aggressive were they in trying to move up? Were they willing to move future capital around for it? Maybe not, but yeah, kind of annoying in that aspect. But nonetheless, that's all I have for you on today's show, folks. Last call if you want to get a J.J. Watt autograph picture raffle ticket on today's live show. If not, all good. I will be live 30 minutes before kickoff this Sunday, so make sure to stay tuned. Make sure you pop in for that because we will be getting rowdy. And I promise you this, if the Texans win on Sunday up against the Jags, we are so back.